This is all based in a memo that you've looked at. What does it say?
Yeah, it basically says that most of the employees in both the U.S. and U.K. offices of Goldman Sachs, which you're talking north of 20,000 workers here, close to 30,000, although I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, need to prepare to come back to the office by mid to late June. And this is essentially a compulsory mandate. They really want people to come back. There will be exceptions for health. They're also preparing to say that their technologists, their engineers will have greater flexibility. So we'll see some exceptions, and we'll also see some work-throughs for the capacity constraints that safety protocols have mandated. You may not be able to have 100% of your workforce in any given office, even if they want to and are asked to. But essentially, it's the first big step, I think, toward a full return to office for Goldman. And they're putting this in a memo that's expected to go out to employees sometime later this morning, from what I'm told.
How does it compare to what JPM and B of A are saying? This is clearly much broader than the initial rumblings we had heard, and that was that this was necessary for a trading room to exist, right?
Yeah, it's so interesting, Carl, and I and everyone else who covers my beat has been tracking this closely through the last year or so. So JP Morgan has something kind of roughly similar. They've said they're going to open all their U.S. offices on May 17th, and they encourage people to come back and give it a try, although it's going to be voluntary. Sometime after July 4th, they would like to do something roughly similar to what Goldman is going to do in late June, where they basically say you need to come back in, although exceptions will be made for extenuating circumstances. B of A, as yet, has really not shared what their return to office guidance is going to be in any specific terms, whether that's a timetable or kind of what the ground rules will be. So different firms are taking different approaches. And of course, you've heard CEOs of major companies, including a Larry Fink from BlackRock or a Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan, opine on how office situations in the future may be very different than they were in the past, perhaps with less capacity. So this is going to be a really interesting one to watch. But I would say by and large, Carl, what I'm gathering from the folks in the big banks, hedge funds, private equity is they're expecting a return to office by the fall for the most part. And we're likely to see somewhere between a 3 and a 5 day week for most employees, depending on the nature of their job. I think those traders will be in for the most part, but maybe the bankers are in and out, and maybe they're doing less business travel. And those that have functions like perhaps back office or, again, coding, technology that can easily be done remotely may continue to be there, if not all the time, a healthy percentage of the time.
Kate, it's good to see you. It's Morgan. I'm curious, has Goldman outlined some of the details around what that return to the office is actually going to look like? Testing, mandated vaccines, other things that could potentially be put in place to make it happen?
Yeah, Morgan, good question. I mean, I think they have had a roughly 20% of their office in the New York office in recent months, maybe even since late last year. So they have some protocols in place. I believe, although I need to double check if they've added anything recently, but they're doing temperature testing in the lobby. They have a survey, like a digital survey that you fill out to see how you're feeling. And if your temperature is above, the sort of key thresholds, you might be asked to go home and rest or perhaps go see a healthcare provider, things like that. They've had spacing in the offices that are wider than usual. I know, for example, that the management committee at Goldman has actually been meeting in person for quite some time, since mid to late last year, but they do it in a series of conference rooms, a handful of people to a room spaced out, and they're watching their counterparts on a Zoom screen. So I actually think something like that is going to be a feature of the future Wall Street office, Morgan, in the sense of, even if the bulk of people in a meeting are in the office, there's going to be Zoom functionality because working from home will become more commonplace.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.